Imagine a place on Earth where sunlight has never touched, where creatures survive on chemistry instead of comfort, and where jaws stretch wider than logic should allow. A world of drifting ghosts, glowing signals, and predators that hunt by feeling the water itself. Down there, patience isn't a virtue, it's a survival strategy. Food arrives like rare miracles. Bodies turn transparent to hide from danger. And nature bends biology so far, it starts to look like science fiction. This is the Midnight Zone, a realm so extreme it quietly holds our planet's climate together while evolution paints its strangest masterpieces in the dark. Stay with me, because once you meet the rules of life down here, the surface ocean will never feel the same again. Imagine descending into the ocean the way someone might slip into a dream, slowly at first, with curiosity tugging you downward, and then suddenly you're falling through a world that doesn't quite make sense anymore. The water thickens around you. The surface fades above like a memory you forgot to write down. Colors dissolve one by one, starting with red, then orange, then yellow, until the last traces of sunlight stretch themselves thin and vanish entirely. This is the moment you reach the threshold of the Midnight Zone, a stretch of ocean so relentlessly dark that even the idea of light feels like outdated technology. Down here, the universe keeps its secrets in a vault of black water, and the key is pressure, not the metaphorical kind, but the turn your submarine into modern sculpture kind. When people imagine the deep sea, they often picture a spooky, quiet place where a few fish float lazily like bored ghosts. But the Midnight Zone is not quiet, lazy, or particularly friendly. It is a wilderness crafted from pure darkness, shaped by forces that would prefer you leave immediately. Consider the pressure alone. Every 10 meters you sink, you feel another helping of weight stacking above you, until suddenly it's thousands of meters later and the ocean has piled the equivalent of an elephant on every square inch of your body. Up at the surface, that would be considered a crime. Down here, it's just Monday, and yet, despite conditions that feel like nature sat down and tried to design the worst Airbnb of all time, life shows up anyway, carrying a suitcase full of bizarre adaptations and a cheerful disregard for everything we assume about biology. This is the kingdom where creatures build their bodies out of soft, squishy materials that look like they were engineered by someone who ran out of structural plans halfway through. Bones, optional. Rigid shapes, not recommended. Squishiness, absolutely essential. In fact, many of these animals resemble ideas rather than solid objects, as if evolution whispered, "Okay, listen, the physics down here are ridiculous, so let's go minimalistic." But before we get to squid that glow like malfunctioning neon signs, or fish with faces only a mother, and maybe a tolerant science communicator could love, we need to linger for a moment on the atmosphere of this place. Not the literal atmosphere, because that is far above us now, but the emotional atmosphere. The feeling of being swallowed by a world where your senses stop working the way you expect them to. Vision is pointless. Sound plays tricks, bouncing strangely across the dark water. Even the temperature seems to hover in a permanent chilly glare, as if the ocean is trying to let you know very politely that you do not belong here. This sensation of total unfamiliarity is not just poetic. It is the rule of survival here. The midnight zone doesn't allow half measures. Either you adapt completely, or you pack up and leave, although creatures living here have nowhere to go and no real concept of movement on that scale anyway. The result is a collection of animals so specialized, so uniquely tuned to the deep, that they feel like they crawled out of a science fiction writer's notebook and reluctantly agreed to live in the ocean instead of outer space. Take the darkness. For humans, pitch black is the absence of light. For the creatures living down here, darkness is a resource, a habitat, and sometimes a weapon. Imagine trying to find dinner, avoid predators, make friends, and possibly even date, while living in a room that is approximately the size of several continents and permanently unlit. The animals down here solve that by evolving senses that defy our expectations. Some detect the faintest vibrations in the water, the kind that would be too subtle for us to even know existed. Others generate their own light through bioluminescence, though we're not diving into the details of that yet. That is a story for a later chapter, where lights get their time to shine. But for now, know this: the residents of the Midnight Zone navigate by inventing physics that work for them alone, bending the usual rules the way an improv comedian bends logic mid-joke. Descending deeper, you notice something else that makes the Midnight Zone feel like a psychological test you didn't sign up for: the silence. Not the peaceful silence of a calm forest, but the kind that stretches forever, broken only by the occasional distant pop or creak, like the ocean is shifting its furniture around when it thinks no one is watching. It's eerie, but also strangely mesmerizing. This silence amplifies everything: your heartbeat, your breathing, the faint whisper of currents moving around you. In a world with no light, sound is the only narrator, delivering clues in a language you barely understand. What makes this place truly captivating is that despite the harshness, despite the physics that would flatten most creatures into abstract marine pancakes, life persists, not timidly, but boldly. The Midnight Zone is not barren. It is bustling in a quiet, dignified way, like a neighborhood that prefers not to brag. Every creature here is an expert in staying alive under conditions that would make even the hardiest land animals politely opt out. The adaptations are not just clever, they are astonishing, dramatic, even theatrical at times. It is as if evolution decided the deep sea was the stage for its most experimental performances, complete with costumes, props, and lighting decisions that no one requested. By the time you realize just how far you've descended, the surface might as well be another planet. The world above feels irrelevant here. This is a realm with its own rules, its own ecosystem, and its own quiet intensity. The Midnight Zone humbles you, unsettles you, fascinates you, and for reasons you might not fully understand, makes you want to stay just a few minutes longer, because you sense that somewhere out in the darkness, something extraordinary is waiting, something with a glow, a shape, or a behavior that defies what you thought life could do. And that is the real magic of the Midnight Zone, not the darkness itself, but the life that learned to thrive inside it. Creatures here didn't just accept the conditions, they transformed them into opportunities. They reshaped physics to fit their needs, sculpted biology into new directions, and turned an uninhabitable void into a gallery of survival masterpieces. Each one is a reminder that even in the darkest places on Earth, life refuses to simply exist. It innovates. This is where the story begins. To understand the Midnight Zone, you have to picture the ocean not as one big blue bathtub, but as a towering skyscraper turned completely upside down. The shallow waters near the surface are basically the lobby, bright, busy, and full of creatures that operate on the normal rules of biology. But the farther you descend, the more the floors begin to warp. The walls darken. The architecture gets weird. And then, somewhere around 1,000 meters down, the elevator doors slide open, and you are deposited into a floor that is not just dim, but genuinely lightless. This is the Midnight Zone, also known by its slightly more intimidating name, the bathypelagic layer. Although bathypelagic sounds like the ocean is about to bill you for an expensive spa treatment, it actually means you are now in one of Earth's largest and most extreme habitats. The Midnight Zone stretches from roughly 1,000 meters to 4,000 meters deep. That's a vertical span taller than most mountain ranges, except instead of fresh air and scenic overlooks, you get complete darkness and enough pressure to convince any visiting machinery that it made a series of poor life choices. Sunlight does not just fade here, it is physically incapable of reaching this far because the ocean itself swallows every last photon long before it can even attempt the descent. If daylight were an employee, this is the point where it clocks out and goes home. Below this boundary, the only light that exists is the light that animals create themselves through biochemistry. But even that faint glow is not the topic for this chapter. Right now, we are solely concerned with defining the neighborhood and understanding why it behaves like the world's most intimidating physics classroom. Let's start with the darkness. People often hear pitch black and imagine something close to a windowless room. The Midnight Zone makes that room look like a brightly lit supermarket. This is a level of darkness where shadows no longer exist, because shadows require some amount of light to oppose. You cannot see your hand, your surroundings, or even the movement of something drifting inches from your face. Cameras need specialized sensors to capture anything here. Your eyes, even if you had the legendary night vision of a comic book vigilante, would be as useful as sunglasses taped to a potato. It is not just a lack of light. It is an environment where the concept of seeing simply does not apply. But darkness is only the first part of the job description. The pressure here is what makes the Midnight Zone truly dramatic. At 1,000 meters deep, the ocean presses inward with about 100 times the pressure at the surface. Think of it like stacking an entire parade of elephants on your shoulders, except the elephants are made of water and they do not intend to move. Venture deeper and the pressure climbs steadily, becoming more and more unreasonable until you reach the lower boundary of this region with nearly 400 atmospheres of force crushing against every available surface. This is the kind of pressure that could crumple a steel container into something resembling a modern art sculpture titled Regret. The reason for this immense pressure is straightforward. Water is heavy, and it does not take breaks. Every column of water above you contributes its weight downward. A single cubic meter of seawater weighs over a metric ton. Now imagine thousands of vertical meters of that water stacked above your head, pressing inward at every angle, because water does not care about directional fairness. It simply pushes everywhere at once. Humans built submarines to explore this zone, but even those require reinforced hulls thick enough to make engineers sweat profusely during installation. Strangely enough, despite all this crushing force, the midnight zone is incredibly stable. The temperatures hover just above freezing but remain consistent. Currents move slowly, like the entire place has been set to energy-saving mode. There is very little turbulence, which means sediments do not swirl. Objects do not drift suddenly, and the environment feels eerily still, almost suspended in time. If the upper ocean is a bustling city, this layer is a quiet archive hall where everything sits in an orderly calm, overseen by physical forces, strong enough to squeeze metal, but gentle enough to leave a drifting feather undisturbed. This stability is part of what defines the region. Because there is no light and almost no seasonal change, the midnight zone is governed by constants: steady cold, steady darkness, steady pressure. It is a world where chaos is rare, but intensity is absolute. Life has no choice but to adapt to these unwavering conditions down to the smallest detail, crafting bodies and behaviors that can exist only here and nowhere else on Earth. Many creatures develop soft, gelatinous forms, not because they want to, but because it is the only affordable structural plan that does not collapse under enormous pressure. Hard shells and bony plates work great near the surface, but become dangerous liabilities at depth. Rigidity here equals vulnerability. Even without life, the midnight zone would be fascinating simply for its physics. But with life, it becomes something extraordinary. A vast domain shaped by rules that almost seem designed to test the limits of biology. Nothing here is easy. Nothing is forgiving. And yet, this region makes up an immense portion of Earth's living space. If you took every environment where animals exist and measured it, the midnight zone would claim a huge slice of the planetary pie, stretching across every ocean basin on the planet. It is a reminder that while darkness and pressure feel hostile to us, they are perfectly acceptable conditions for countless species that have never known the surface world. So, the midnight zone is not just a depth. It is a biome, a realm, a colossal slice of Earth where light cannot follow, where pressure reshapes the rules of survival, and where physics itself has a strong personality. To some creatures, it is home. To everything else, it is a place that politely suggests you turn around and go back the way you came. If you want to understand how darkness shapes evolution, Imagine living your entire life inside an unlit movie theater where the film never starts and the snack bar closed centuries ago. Eventually, you would stop waiting for the previews and start reinventing the rules for simply existing. That is exactly what creatures in the Midnight Zone have done. They were handed a world where sight is either useless, inconvenient, or downright impossible, and instead of complaining, they rewired biology in ways that would make an optometrist question their degree. Down here, darkness is not just a backdrop, it is the architect, the sculptor, and the strict landlord that determines what features stay, what features go, and what features evolve into something so strange the textbooks have to be updated with size. In this deeper than deep world, eyesight becomes a negotiation. Some creatures double down on it, building eyes so enormous they look like someone tried to draw a fish from memory and exaggerated the proportions. Others do the complete opposite and ditch their eyes entirely, deciding the best way to handle a pitch-black environment is simply to stop investing in equipment that no longer contributes anything useful. And then there are the creatures that take the third route, the creative option, developing visual systems so bizarre, so hyper-specialized, or so functionally unusual that biologists examining them probably had a moment where they whispered, "I'm sorry, what am I even looking at?" Let's start with the creatures that go big. When you live in a world without sunlight, your only visual hope comes from the faintest glimmers, tiny bits of residual light filtering from above, or the occasional glow from another organism farther off in the blackness. Enlarged eyes become a superpower here. They gather every stray photon the way a vacuum gathers crumbs. Some deep-sea species have eyes shaped like satellite dishes, curved inward to funnel the faintest trace of bioluminescent flickers, those small, flickering points that serve more as whispers than as illumination. These giant eyes allow their owners to detect distant movement, identify potential predators or prey, and interpret the sparse visual language of a world that runs on darkness. But large eyes are not just big. They are often shockingly sensitive, containing photoreceptors tuned to wavelengths so narrow they might as well be listening for ghosts. In a normal environment, such sensitivity would be overwhelming, like walking around with binoculars duct taped to your face. But down here, that extreme specialization is what allows these animals to see anything at all. Some species even have tubular eyes, long and cylindrical, pointed upward like built-in periscopes. These structures maximize light capture from the direction where faint illumination might exist above. The creature sees almost nothing sideways, but that is fine. When the world is pitch black, you learn to prioritize. Now, on the opposite end of the evolutionary spectrum are the animals that simply gave up on eyes entirely. No resentment, no grieving process, just a practical decision carved across thousands of generations. Why invest precious energy in maintaining complex organs that only take up space, demand oxygen, and contribute exactly nothing in a lightless ecosystem? Eyes are metabolically expensive. Their nerves need maintenance. Their tissues require constant care. In the Midnight Zone, evolution looks at these costs and rolls out the biological equivalent of a budget cut. So some creatures allow their eyes to shrink, degrade, or vanish altogether. They may have tiny indentations where eyes once existed, like geological fossils of old features that have outlived their purpose. Others erase all traces of ocular structures, dedicating that saved energy to senses more useful in the dark: pressure detection, chemical sensing, or vibration interpretation. Without eyes, these creatures glide through the blackness undistracted, guided by senses that perform far better than any amount of visual equipment ever could. They live perfectly functional lives without the burden of vision, like athletes who specialize in sprinting and retire from every other sport. But the weirdest evolutionary strategies belong to the creatures that turn vision into something that makes scientists' eyebrows climb several centimeters. Some animals develop asymmetric eyes, one enormous, scanning upward for the faintest spark, and one small, pointed downward for bioluminescence. To a human, this looks like someone mismatched their eyeballs, the way you might mismatched socks. To the animal, it is a brilliant adaptation that lets it watch for predators above and prey below at the same time. And then there are creatures whose retinas contain reflective layers, bouncing light around inside their eyes like tiny biological hall of mirrors. The goal is simple: use every last scrap of light at least twice. Others evolve eyes that detect motion rather than detail, capable of spotting a faint shimmer against the absolute black. Some species develop complex retina shapes, folded, layered, or curved like living satellite dishes, to amplify the tiniest hint of glow. There are fish with eyes so upward focused they appear permanently astonished. There are crustaceans whose eyes swivel independently like confused surveillance cameras. There are animals whose pupils reshape dramatically to modulate the almost non-existent ambient light. But one of the strangest adaptations belongs to creatures whose eyes evolve to detect biological light signatures specifically. They are not looking for shapes the way we do. They are detecting the chemical fingerprints of bioluminescence itself. It is like having vision tuned not to brightness, but to the identity of whoever produced the glow. This transforms the darkness into a kind of slow-moving code. One organism's glow says, "I'm over here." Another says, "Not today, predator." And another quietly says, "Dinner is served," although not necessarily in that order. In a place without sunlight, vision becomes an experiment rather than an expectation. The result is an evolutionary playground where eyes mutate, specialize, disappear, expand, or reinvent themselves with gleeful disregard for everything we consider normal. Some creatures rely on vision as a rare luxury. Others abandon it like forgotten furniture, and many evolve systems so novel that we are still not entirely sure how they perceive the world around them. The midnight zone does not just shape eyes. It transforms the entire concept of seeing into something fluid, optional, and deeply inventive. Here, darkness is not an obstacle. It is the sculptor chiseling away at biology, refining each species with patient, uncompromising pressure. And what emerges from that sculpting is not uniformity, but diversity so strange and so brilliant that even in total darkness, evolution finds a way to shine. If you really want to appreciate the creatures that live in the deeper layers of the ocean, picture your own body trying to follow them down and immediately filing a formal complaint. Human organs are fantastic, loyal little things, until you drop them into a region where the pressure rises so dramatically that every cell begins contemplating escape. The rule of pressure survival in the deep ocean isn't a minor adaptation. It's the biological equivalent of rebuilding your entire existence so that your organs don't stage a full-scale rebellion. Down here, the creatures that succeed are the ones who figured out an ingenious loophole. If you make your body as soft, squishy, and jelly-like as possible, the pressure stops caring. If you remove the hard parts, the crushing weight has nothing to crush. This is where the deep sea starts resembling a talent show dedicated entirely to boneless wonders. Hard skeleton? Too risky. Gas-filled spaces? Forget it. Air pockets behave like balloons in a trash compactor, which is why most deep-dwelling animals abandon the idea entirely. Instead, they fill their bodies with gelatinous tissue, slimy, watery, flexible material that compresses gracefully without shattering. It's not glamorous, but it works. The animals built this way may look like they were designed by someone working from memory after a long nap, but they are perfectly engineered for the job. Pressure in the midnight zone and beyond is not just heavy, it is relentless. Imagine the weight of a stack of cars pressing down on every part of your body, not as a fun physics metaphor, but as an everyday experience. At a few thousand meters deep, that pressure becomes so intense that even machines specifically engineered to withstand it sometimes fail. Metal buckles, plastic bends, bolts sigh deeply. Yet gelatinous life forms float there unfazed, as if the laws of physics politely skip over them. This jelly-based survival strategy is not just about softness, it's about balance. Deep-sea creatures often maintain a density almost identical to the water around them. When your body matches the ocean's density, the pressure doesn't see you as an intruder. Instead, it treats you as just another part of the water column. It's the ultimate stealth mode, an existence where the boundaries between organism and environment blur. Many animals down here are so neutrally buoyant that a gentle current can carry them like drifting ghosts, which is exactly how they prefer it. Movement costs energy, and in the deep, energy is not something you waste on stylish athleticism. Inside these gelatinous bodies, things get even stranger. Instead of firm, structured organs arranged like components in a well-organized toolkit, deep-sea organs are often loosely distributed, surrounded by supportive fluids that protect them like a biological shock absorber. Even the tissues are bathed in substances that prevent proteins from folding incorrectly under pressure, a chemical balancing act that would make a biochemist clap. Pressure damages proteins in most animals, but deep-sea species rely on specialized molecules that hold everything together, even when the world outside wants to squish them into abstract shapes. Some fish that dwell in these depths have muscles that resemble pudding more than the solid fillets humans are used to. To be fair, the deep ocean doesn't care how fast you can swim, or whether your muscle definition would impress anyone. In a world with little food and enormous pressure, maintaining strong, bulky muscles would be a waste of precious calories. So instead, deep-sea fish streamline their tissues into a soft consistency that functions perfectly well for slow drifting, strategic lunging, or simply waiting patiently for dinner to make a mistake. But not all adaptations are internal. Some creatures develop flexible connective tissues that allow their bodies to contort, compress, and stretch as needed, like they were built from living taffy. Others reinforce their cells with pressure-friendly compounds that act like microscopic stabilizers, preventing cellular collapse. A few even alter the chemical makeup of their cell membranes, packing in more fluid, less rigid molecules, so their membranes don't crack under intense pressure. If your cell walls stiffen or freeze, you're done. If they remain floppy and cooperative, you survive. This leads to one of the most interesting quirks of pressure-adapted life. Many of these animals can't survive outside the deep. Bring them upward too fast, and their biology becomes confused. Their tissues lose structural support. Their enzymes malfunction. Their internal chemistry, built for crushing pressure, becomes unstable. It's like taking a deep-sea creature on a spontaneous vacation to the surface and finding that gravity, light, temperature, and chemistry all politely decline to work with them. Some animals literally fall apart when removed from their pressure habitat, not because they are fragile, but because they are perfectly tuned to conditions that most organisms find lethal. Even movement is shaped by pressure. Many deep dwellers adopt slow, deliberate motions because fast swimming would require strong muscles and rigid bones, luxuries unavailable to gelatinous beings. Their locomotion resembles drifting, pulsing, or gentle waving, like they're performing underwater Tai Chi. It looks peaceful because it is peaceful. The less effort you expend resisting the crushing weight around you, the less stress your body endures. Pressure also plays tricks on metabolism. The deeper you go, the more the pressure interferes with normal chemical reactions, slowing down processes that would be efficient at the surface. To cope, creatures evolve enzymes that function flawlessly in these conditions, but only within this specific environmental window. These enzymes are like experts who only work night shifts in a freezing high-pressure laboratory. Take them elsewhere, and they refuse to cooperate. Some animals have taken an even more dramatic approach to pressure survival by using their internal fluids as shields. Instead of concentrating salts the way surface animals do, they distribute different solutes that stabilize proteins and protect structures from being crushed. This chemistry has baffled researchers for decades because it's so specialized and so effective. The result of all these strategies is a world populated by creatures that seem strange only to us. Down in the depths, their softness is not weakness, but brilliance. They are sculpted by pressure, shaped into forms that can glide where rigid creatures would be flattened. They thrive because they surrendered hardness. They survive because they embraced flexibility. And in a place where pressure tries its best to turn everything into a compact souvenir, the animals made of living jelly are the ones that endure. If you could peer into the daily life of a Midnight Zone resident, you would quickly realize that every moment revolves around one sacred principle: do not waste energy. Down here, calories have an importance that borders on spiritual. Imagine an economy where a single crumb is treated like a family inheritance, and you begin to understand how survival works in this vast, unlit chamber of the ocean. Energy is not just valuable, it's the rarest currency, the one that determines who lives, who drifts, and who quietly disappears into the dark. On land, and even in the sunlit shallows, life has access to a buffet of energy sources. Plants and microbes convert sunlight into sugars, grazers munch on plants, predators eat grazers, and so on. The whole system is supported by a steady inflow of solar energy. But in the midnight zone, there is no sunlight, none, zero. This creates a problem that nature had to solve with a combination of patience, creativity, and ruthlessly efficient engineering. Every creature here depends on energy falling from above in one form or another. Picture the entire ocean as the world's largest, slowest rainstorm, except the raindrops are tiny particles of dead plankton, fish scales, plankton poop, jelly fragments, and assorted microscopic leftovers drifting down from the bustling world near the surface. Scientists call this continuous drizzle marine snow, but that phrase makes it sound whimsical and picturesque, when in reality it's a gritty mixture of remains that the deep sea treats like a miracle. For the creatures down here, this snow is not decorative. It's dinner, hope, oxygen for their biological budgets, and sometimes the only meaningful meal for weeks. Because the supply is unpredictable and usually meager, the ability to save energy is an evolutionary mandate. Many animals adopt a slow-motion lifestyle where nothing is rushed. Their movements are gentle, like they're afraid sudden motions might scare away their own metabolism. Their hearts beat more slowly. Their digestion creeps along at a pace that surface dwellers would consider a concerning medical issue. Some species can go months without eating and suffer absolutely no existential angst about it. This is not laziness. This is strategy. Even the shape of their bodies reflects this energy accounting. Many animals have elongated, narrow silhouettes that reduce drag. Others have large mouths that maximize the reward for any successful hunt, because in the deep sea, when food shows up, you do not question what it is. You simply accept the gift and make room internally. Still others opt for massive stomachs that expand like biological luggage, just in case something too large to eat politely decides to drift by. One of the strangest consequences of energy scarcity is how it shapes behavior. Deep-sea creatures are cautious by necessity. A surface predator might chase prey with high-speed determination, but down here, sprinting after a possible meal is equivalent to draining your entire savings account on a lottery ticket. If you lose, the consequences can be fatal. Better to wait patiently, conserve strength, and strike only when success is almost guaranteed. Because everything counts down here, nothing gets wasted. When a large object sinks to the depths, say a dead squid or an expired shark, it becomes the deep-sea equivalent of a city-wide celebration. Creatures gather like cautious partygoers, each taking their turn, peeling away nourishment layer by layer. First come the larger scavengers, biting off chunks and leaving scattering currents in their wake. Then the mid-sized feeders arrive, nibbling the scraps. Then smaller creatures show up, picking at the bits and slivers that remain. And finally, after days or weeks, microbes claim the remnants so thoroughly that not even the smallest identifiable trace remains. It's not a meal, it's a community project. This recycling process is so complete that even the leftovers of leftovers have a purpose. Tiny flakes shed during feeding become fuel for bacteria. Chemical compounds released during decomposition help other organisms survive. There's a kind of deep-sea etiquette built around the idea that nothing, no matter how small, slimy, or unrecognizable, should go to waste. If you can extract energy from it, you will. Energy scarcity also gives rise to an unusual sense of timing. Some creatures spend most of their lives in a state of slow suspension, waiting for the moment when food becomes available. Their bodies are built for long pauses. Their biological processes can idle at the lowest possible settings. When a food source finally arrives, they activate with surprising efficiency, as if someone flipped a hidden switch. Eating becomes an event, not a routine. It is a moment of urgency in an existence otherwise defined by patience. Chemical adaptations play a role here too. To survive with so little fuel, many creatures rely on biochemical shortcuts, ways of getting the same work done with far fewer calories. Some have metabolisms that operate at such low temperatures and such slow speeds that their energy needs are a tiny fraction of what a similar-sized surface animal would require. Their muscles function with minimal input. Their organs perform slow, steady maintenance rather than high-speed processing. It's biological minimalism at its finest. The whole ecosystem operates like a careful ledger. Gains and losses must balance. Every movement has a cost. Every decision is weighed against the price of energy. But despite this scarcity, the midnight zone is not a desolate wasteland. It is a place where precision replaces abundance, where efficiency replaces speed, and where creatures have adapted so elegantly that they can survive on crumbs from the world above. In the end, the midnight zone teaches a quiet lesson. Life does not need luxury to thrive. It only needs creativity, resourcefulness, and an almost suspicious willingness to eat absolutely anything that drifts within reach. This realm is not built on feasting. It is built on survival that is steady, deliberate, and profoundly clever. If you could sit in the midnight zone long enough, quiet, still, letting the darkness settle around you like a heavy coat, you would notice something peculiar about the residents drifting through the void. Nothing rushes, nothing scurries, nothing darts around like it has somewhere important to be. This is a world where speed is almost suspicious, as if anything moving too quickly must be up to no good. Down here, the pace of life is so slow that watching an animal feed, swim, or simply exist feels like observing a nature documentary filmed at half speed. And the reason is simple. Energy is precious, and speed burns calories like an extravagant, irresponsible hobby. At these lightless depths, metabolism slows to a crawl because it has no other choice. The creatures that survive here are experts in frugality. If metabolism were a household budget, theirs would be the kind with handwritten envelopes careful allowances, and absolutely no impulse purchases, every heartbeat is a negotiation. Every twitch of a fin is weighed against the cost of tomorrow. Movement is not a default behavior. It is a calculated decision with real consequences, and maybe later becomes a way of life. The deep sea environment does not encourage haste. The water is cold, perpetually cold, hovering just above the freezing point. Cold temperatures slow chemical reactions, and slower chemistry means slower metabolisms. In warmer waters, muscles fire rapidly, enzymes work efficiently, and cells hum along with all the enthusiasm of a caffeinated orchestra. But here, nothing has the warmth needed to speed up. The ocean itself slows everything down, acting as a giant biological brake pedal pressed firmly against every living creature. This lethargic pace affects even the smallest details of life. Heart rates drop to astonishing lows. Digestive processes drag on for days or even weeks. Some species can go so long between meals that their metabolism becomes a barely glowing embers rather than a steady flame. Their bodies do not hurry because hurrying demands fuel, and fuel is the one thing the midnight zone refuses to provide easily. But slow metabolism does more than ration energy. It shapes behavior in ways that feel almost theatrical. Predators here do not sprint after prey in dramatic chases. Instead, they wait, they drift, they hover in the shadows like patient riddles. Their bodies conserve every ounce of energy until the perfect moment arrives, and then they strike with the kind of efficiency that suggests they've been rehearsing the movie for years. Quick decisions are rare. Precise decisions are everything. Even communication moves at this glacial pace. Some species rely on faint chemical signals to interact with one another, a method that works beautifully in the deep but does not lend itself to lively conversation. Messages drift slowly on currents, arriving long after they were released. Imagine sending a text message and receiving the reply sometime next month. That's the deep sea approach to staying in touch. This slow motion lifestyle also shapes growth and aging. Many deep-sea creatures grow at rates that would make a houseplant look ambitious. They take their time, plenty of it, adding tissue layer by microscopic layer. Some species live surprisingly long lives because their bodies do not rush toward biological deadlines. When your metabolic clock barely ticks, age stretches into something flexible and unhurried. A creature might spend a decade in what surface animals experience as a year. Time in the deep behaves differently, more like a politely drifting concept than a strict measure. Swimming style reveals another consequence of slow metabolism. Deep-sea animals often move with gentle pulses, slow fin waves, or drifting glides. Powerful strokes are reserved for emergencies only. Their muscles evolve for efficiency rather than strength, built to function at low speeds without exhausting precious energy. A single strong motion could cost enough calories to jeopardize survival. So they move like underwater monks, calm, deliberate, and committed to the quiet path. Some animals take the slow approach even further. adopting strategies that make them look nearly motionless. A few species suspend themselves in the water column, letting the subtle currents do most of the work. They hold their bodies steady for minutes or hours, barely flicking a fin. It's not laziness, it's strategy. When every calorie matters, stillness becomes a superpower. Chemical adaptations also contribute to this subdued lifestyle. Many deep-sea species rely on enzymes that operate efficiently only at low speeds, tuned specifically for the deep. Surface-dwelling animals would consider these enzymes ridiculously sluggish, but in the cold, high-pressure world of the depths, they are perfect. The entire biochemistry of these creatures is arranged around the principle of slow, steady function, never rushing, never overheating, never wasting. Even hunting unfolds at the pace of a slow-burn thriller rather than an action movie. Some predators lure prey with faint movements or flickers of light, details for a later chapter, of course. But the actual strike often happens after a long period of waiting. The predator remains motionless, conserving energy until the target drifts close enough. Then, with a sudden snap, swift but singular, the opportunity is seized. One quick burst is all they can afford before slipping back into the calm quiet of drift and watchfulness. Because speed is such an extravagant expense, cooperation between organisms becomes rare. There is simply not enough energy in the system for sustained, active group behaviors. Most deep-sea animals lead solitary lives, crossing paths only occasionally, and interacting mostly through instinct rather than social ritual. It's hard to form community bonds when everyone is operating on a metabolism that prefers long naps over company. Yet despite this sluggish lifestyle, deep-sea creatures are anything but fragile. They are masters of endurance. They can outweight almost anything. Their slow metabolism is not a weakness, but a remarkably clever adaptation to an unforgiving world. While surface creatures burn through energy like it's a renewable resource, deep-sea animals treat every calorie like a long-term investment. The brutal rule of slow motion is the anchor of deep-sea survival. It is the quiet law that governs daily existence, shaping behavior, biology, and the very pace of life. In the midnight zone, patience isn't just a virtue. It's the only viable strategy. Every movement is intentional. Every heartbeat is precious. And in this vast dark expanse where speed is too expensive, slow becomes the ultimate form of strength. If the midnight zone had a utility company, it would sell one thing and one thing only: light made from scratch. There is no sunlight here, no stray glow bouncing down from the surface, no glimmer of moonlight sneaking through the waves. Yet this pitch-black world is far from visually empty. Instead, it sparkles with a constellation of living lights, brief flashes, drifting glows, and eerie pulses that turn the dark into a kind of underwater star field. Bioluminescence is the deep sea's electric grid, except instead of power plants and wires, you have countless creatures producing their own light through biochemical wizardry. It is not optional here. It is survival strategy, communication method, camouflage trick, hunting tool, and sometimes a politely desperate, "Please don't eat me, I taste awful" announcement. To understand how essential this living light is, imagine trying to navigate a massive, silent, unlit cave with nothing but your own flashlight. Except in this cave, everyone else also has a flashlight. Everyone has learned to use theirs in very specific ways, and some have flashlights so advanced they make you question whether evolution bought them at a secret science fiction store. Bioluminescence is the language of the deep. Flickers mean one thing, slow pulses another, sudden bursts something else entirely. It's Morse code written in chemistry, spoken in colors and brightness instead of letters and syllables. The basic process behind bioluminescence looks deceptively simple on paper. A molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen, often with the help of a special enzyme called luciferase, and the reaction releases energy in the form of light. But while the chemistry is neat, what creatures do with this light is where things get beautifully unhinged. One of the most mind-bending uses of bioluminescence is camouflage, which sounds counterintuitive until you picture how darkness works in the deep. In a world where everything above you is pure blackness, anything blocking the faintest glimmer of residual downwelling light creates a silhouette that predators can spot. Some fish solve this with counter-illumination, which is a fancy way of saying they glow on their bellies, so their bodies match the dim light from above. The result is a fish that effectively erases its own shadow. It's like owning a personal invisibility cloak, except instead of fabric, you're using biochemistry and good timing. If Harry Potter were a deep-sea animal, he wouldn't need a cloak. He would just switch on a glow underbelly and call it a day. But invisibility is only the first trick. Communication is another major reason creatures light up like underwater signage. Some produce rhythmic flashes to attract mates, tiny light shows that say, "Hello, potential partner, I am here, I am alive, and my glow is fabulous." Others use patterned pulses that signal species identity, which is crucial in a place where seeing another member of your kind is about as common as bumping into your childhood friend in a random airport. The patterns act like glowing signatures. Flash, flash, pause, flash. That means, I'm one of yours. A different rhythm might mean, wrong species, please don't flirt. Imagine dating apps, but powered entirely by blinking lights. Bioluminescence is also a powerful form of misdirection. Some species blast bright flashes when threatened, which sounds counterproductive until you remember that predators rely on surprise. By lighting up suddenly, the creature blinds or startles its attacker for just long enough to slip away. It's the deep-sea version of tossing glitter into someone's face and running in the opposite direction. Other animals eject glowing clouds of mucus or chemical slime. Essentially, glowing escape smoke bombs. The predator follows the wrong glow while the prey, now discreetly unlit, quietly leaves the scene with all the grace of someone who just pulled off a successful magic trick. Then there are the anglers, those legendary deep-sea predators who wield bioluminescence like an apex salesperson. They grow glowing lures, dangling, pulsing orbs that hang in front of their mouths like neon fishing bait. Curious prey, drawn in by what they assume is food or safety or possibly a friend, swim too close, and learn that they've made a terrible, terrible mistake. Imagine going to investigate a lovely porch light, only to discover the porch belongs to a very hungry monster. In the midnight zone, porch lights bite back. But not all bioluminescence is about trickery or seduction. Some creatures use their glow for practical everyday tasks. A few species generate light to illuminate the area directly in front of them, like carrying a tiny lantern through the abyss. This isn't bright enough to reveal the vast surroundings, just enough to notice something edible drifting a short distance away. It is functional, subtle, and deeply considerate of the local darkness aesthetic. Other species use their glow as a warning. They light up to say, "I am toxic," or "I taste like sadness," or "If you eat me, you will regret everything." It's one of nature's most honest disclaimers, far more polite than letting a predator learn the hard way. Bioluminescent warnings are especially effective because anything bright in the deep immediately draws attention. If you're glowing steadily, predators learn to leave you alone, not because you look tough, but because in the deep sea, confidence is suspicious. Even the color of bioluminescent light carries meaning. Most deep-sea creatures glow blue or green because those wavelengths travel farthest underwater. But a rare few produce red light, a color most deep-sea animals cannot even see. That turns red bioluminescence into a secret flashlight, visible only to those who evolved to detect it. Some predators use this invisible beam to hunt silently, glowing with a color their prey does not perceive. It's the ultimate stealth accessory. The deeper you travel, the more bioluminescent creativity you encounter. Chains of drifting organisms glow like underwater lantern festivals. Small creatures pulse in synchronized waves, a hypnotic effect that looks like the ocean taking a deep, shimmering breath. Some even use their glow to lure plankton, the way a porch light attracts insects on land. And the best part, all of this happens in the deepest darkness imaginable, a world that should be visually empty, but instead twinkles with living galaxies. Bioluminescence is not decoration. It is survival condensed into flashes, glimmers, and pulses. It is the deep sea's primary language, its social network, its defense system, its navigation tool, and sometimes its version of stand-up comedy. A glowing fish announcing with impeccable timing, "Eat someone else, please." In a world carved from darkness, light becomes the most powerful currency, and the creatures of the midnight zone use it with incredible precision, proving that even in the deepest shadows, nature always finds a way to illuminate its stage. In the midnight zone, where meals drift by as unpredictably as lost balloons at a county fair, the creatures who survive longest are the ones who decided that moderation was overrated. If the rule of energy scarcity encourages patience, then the rule of mouths and stomachs encourages ambition, specifically the ambition to fit absolutely anything inside your face, whether or not it makes anatomical sense. Down here, jaws behave like stretchable concepts rather than strict physical structures, and stomachs operate under guidelines best described as take everything, question nothing. To appreciate why deep-sea animals evolved mouths that could double as expandable storage units, you first have to grasp the uncertainty of dinner in the deep. Imagine sitting in a restaurant where the lights are off, the menu is blank, and you're told food might arrive at any moment, or maybe not until next month. In that kind of setting, you wouldn't nibble politely. You'd commit to the biggest meal available, even if it required questionable life choices. That's the exact philosophy these creatures follow. If something edible drifts within range, they take it, whether it's the size of a grape or the size of a small dog. Let's start with the classic deep-sea trademark, the unhinged jaw. Many species here evolved jaws with joints so flexible they could make a gymnast jealous. Some have skulls built from loosely connected bones that spread apart like a lattice when they open their mouths, creating an entrance so wide it appears the animal is attempting to swallow the concept of geometry itself. Others possess ligament systems that stretch like living bungee cords, allowing them to lower, tilt, or swing their jaws forward in dramatic lunges. The result is a feeding mechanism that looks less like a conventional bite and more like a sudden, engulfing vacuum event. But these jaws aren't just big, they're cunning. Some predators hold their jaws folded tight against their bodies, ready to snap open like spring-loaded traps. They lurk motionless, conserving energy, letting the current do the work of delivering prey. When something blunders too close, the jaw deploys with astonishing speed, turning stillness into ambush with one decisive movement. Its predation distilled to its purest form. Wait forever, then strike in a heartbeat. Teeth, too, take on dramatic roles. Many deep-sea predators possess long, needle-like fangs that appear far too large for their own skulls. These teeth don't neatly interlock. Instead, they form a sort of biological gate that prevents prey from escaping once captured. Some teeth even curve inward, ensuring that once dinner goes in, dinner does not come back out. It's an elegantly simple system. You don't need powerful muscles to hold your prey when your teeth are basically nature's version of one-way valves. Of course, having a mouth capable of swallowing shockingly large prey is only useful if your stomach can handle the aftermath. And down in the midnight zone, stomachs are not so much organs as they are elastic storage chambers with an optimistic personality. Many species evolve stomach linings that stretch dramatically without tearing, allowing them to hold meals multiple times their own body weight. There are fish down here that look suspiciously normal until you feed them, at which point they inflate into shapes reminiscent of ill-advised balloon animals. This isn't because they're gluttonous, it's because they might not get another meal for months, and evolution taught them to treat every food item like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Stomachs in the deep aren't just stretchy, they're strategically slow. Digestion unfolds at a measured pace that borders on heroic patience. Breaking down such enormous meals at once would be risky, energetically expensive, and potentially overwhelming. So many creatures metabolize these feasts in long, drawn-out phases. First, they let the sheer pressure of the depths help compress the meal. Then enzymes get to work, slowly dissolving tissues into manageable pieces. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and their biology is perfectly content with this timetable. What's especially fascinating is how some predators use their stomachs as temporary holding facilities while waiting for more favorable conditions. If they consume something too large to break down immediately, they simply drift with a stomach full of future calories, letting the cold and pressure stabilize the situation until digestion can proceed without risk. It's not so different from keeping leftovers in the fridge, except your leftovers might also be bigger than you. Another clever adaptation lies in how some species prevent their massive meals from attracting unwanted attention. The deep sea is full of opportunistic scavengers, and a bloated predator dragging a giant half-digested creature is essentially advertising a free-for-all buffet. To avoid this, certain predators evolve internal digestion that minimizes leakage or scent. Others retreat into quieter regions of the water column after feeding, drifting until the evidence disappears. In the deep, secrecy is a survival tactic. Even mouth placement becomes a crucial advantage. Some predators position their mouths upward, anticipating food drifting down from above. Others orient theirs forward or downward, depending on the type of prey they specialize in. A few evolve tubular mouths that extend like biological vacuum hoses, ideal for inhaling smaller organisms from the water column. The diversity of designs looks like evolution tried every option on the table and decided, yes, all of these will do. The weirdest mouths, however, belong to species that do not simply eat prey, they envelop it. These creatures create suction vortices, drawing prey inward like living whirlpools. Some jelly-like predators use tentacles or webbed structures to guide victims toward their mouths, combining the subtlety of a drifting curtain with the efficiency of a conveyor system. Others release sticky filaments that act as biological trap nets. Whatever the method, the goal is the same: maximize intake when the opportunity arises. What these adaptations reveal is a powerful truth about the midnight zone. In a place where meals are scarce, evolution rewards creativity, flexibility, and an eat first, solve geometry later attitude. These creatures aren't monstrous. They're brilliantly attuned to a world where unpredictability governs survival. Their mouths stretch because hunger stretches further. Their stomachs expand because opportunity must never be denied. Their feeding strategies look bizarre only because they operate in an ecosystem where the usual rules collapsed under pressure and left behind a new set of possibilities. Down here, success belongs to the animals whose bodies embrace extremes, where limits are optional, jaws are negotiable, and stomachs stay ready for whatever the dark decides to deliver next. In the lightless depths of the midnight zone, hunting becomes something far more delicate than teeth and reflexes. Without sunlight, without shadows, without outlines or silhouettes, predators must rely on a different set of rules, a kind of etiquette shaped by darkness itself. It is a quiet, patient form of warfare where success depends not on how sharp your eyes are, but on how well you can interpret the invisible signals drifting around you. Down here, the ocean is not a blank void. It's a textured sensory puzzle, and the creatures that survive are the ones who learn to read that puzzle like a novel written entirely in water. Without vision to guide them, predators fall back on senses that most surface animals either lack or use only casually. Smell, for instance, becomes an art form. Chemical trails drifting through the water carry stories: where something swam, what it ate, how recently it passed by, and whether it is worth giving chase. Many deep-sea hunters have olfactory systems so sensitive that a single molecule of prey scent can spark interest. It's not sniffing in the way land animals sniff. It's more like tasting the trail of an idea. These predators don't just detect odor, they analyze it. Water currents help them. In the deep, currents are steady but subtle, carrying chemical signals slowly and predictably. A predator might drift sideways on purpose just to catch a better angle on a faint scent stream. Some species move in gentle arcs, mapping the concentration gradient like detectives following a clue. It's painstaking, slow, and incredibly effective. Where vision fails, chemistry takes over. But smell is only one part of the story. To hunt in the deep, predators must feel the water. They must treat the ocean not as a space to move through, but as a giant, three-dimensional instrument that responds to every disturbance. Vibrations ripple through the depths with astonishing clarity, and predators use them to construct an invisible map of their surroundings. A tiny flick of a fin from a fleeing creature might travel meters or even tens of meters before fading. To a well-equipped predator, that vibration is as good as a blinking sign that says, "Food moved this way." Some fish have lateral lines, long rows of pressure sensors along their bodies that register the slightest shift in surrounding water. These sensors pick up not just movement, but movement quality. They can distinguish between a struggling creature, a drifting object, a potential predator, and a harmless eddy. It's like having fingertips spread across the entire surface of your skin, each one capable of interpreting subtle tremors. In the pitch black of the depths, this system becomes a second brain, translating vibrations into locational awareness. Other predators specialize even further. Certain species possess sensitive hairs or filaments that detect microcurrents, functioning like antennae tuned to underwater airwaves. When prey swims past, even if silently, the predator feels the displacement of water. When a shrimp darts upward, the hunter notices the tiny wake it leaves behind. Sometimes hunting involves setting oneself in place, motionless, poised, and letting the water report back. It's a waiting game that rewards patience over aggression. Sound also plays a role, though not in the way humans typically imagine. At great depths, sound travels faster and farther, creating a world where noise becomes a powerful diagnostic tool. Some predators use low-frequency pulses to sense their surroundings, not unlike a slow-motion, low-energy echo system. They don't ping rapidly like dolphins. Instead, they release gentle vibrations that tell them whether hollow or solid shapes lurk nearby. Prey doesn't always hear these pulses. They're too faint, but predators interpret the returning wave like a blind explorer tapping the floorboards of a mansion. A few deep-sea hunters rely on electrical fields, not light or sound. Every living creature produces a minute electric signature through muscle motion and cellular activity. Predators with electroreceptors can sense these faint fields, letting them identify prey that isn't moving, isn't glowing, and isn't making noise. It's a sense invisible to most other animals, giving these hunters a private channel of sensory information. In a world where stealth is essential, detecting the quiet heartbeat of a nearby organism becomes a profound advantage. Even touch becomes a hunting tool. Some predators stretch delicate, elongated appendages through the water like underwater tripwires. These strands float silently, waiting for a passing creature to brush against them. One gentle tap is all it takes to trigger a lightning-fast strike. This method requires almost no motion from the predator, conserving energy and reducing the chance of revealing its position to others. Its ambush evolved into fine art. Behaviorally, hunting in the deep follows a kind of etiquette born from necessity. Predators approach carefully because moving too fast disturbs the water and alerts prey. They position their bodies to minimize drag, becoming shadows within shadows even though shadows technically don't exist here. They time their attacks to coincide with stillness in the water, taking advantage of moments when background noise drops. If a current shifts, they adjust immediately, knowing that prey detection depends on interpreting the water story accurately. There's even etiquette around silence. Predators avoid unnecessary sound, not because they fear being heard by prey, but because they fear being detected by other predators. The deep sea is full of opportunists, and announcing your presence is like shouting your address into a void filled with hungry listeners. Quiet hunting is safer for everyone involved, except the prey, who unfortunately doesn't get much say in the matter. Some predators adopt a technique known as zone sweeping, drifting through slightly different depths to test where prey might be hiding. Others hover at the edge of thermal layers, using temperature differences as subtle signposts. Some specialize in hunting upward, detecting prey silhouetted faintly against the minimal residual glow filtering from far above, though what they see is less shape and more something is up there. The etiquette of hunting in the deep is built on restraint, sensitivity, and precision. There are no chases, no frantic pursuits, no splashes or commotion. Instead, every predator becomes part detective, part musician, part chemist, and part ghost. They stalk with whispers, clues, and patient interpretation, navigating a world where the darkness forces them to reinvent what it means to hunt at all. And in that strange, silent world, the creatures who thrive are the ones who learned that darkness isn't an obstacle. It's a medium that reveals its secrets not to the quickest hunter, but to the most perceptive one. In the deep sea, where darkness reigns supreme and visibility is as scarce as a polite mosquito, evolution quietly discovered one of the most effective survival strategies imaginable. Simply don't be seen, not by glowing, not by hiding behind rocks, not by outswimming danger. Instead, fade into the water itself. Down here, invisibility isn't magic. It's biology taken to its most minimalist, elegant extreme. Creatures have turned their bodies into windows, their tissues into optical illusions, and their colors into soft whispers that dissolve into the surrounding blackness. If the midnight zone had a fashion trend, it would be ghost chic. To understand why transparency is so powerful in the deep, imagine trying to spot a clear glass vase floating in a room with no light. You wouldn't unless you bumped into it face first. And much like that bruised forehead, predators in the deep often notice their prey only when they are already too close to do anything about it. Being transparent means blending seamlessly with a background that is already made of darkness. It's the ultimate stealth, a disguise that requires no energy to maintain and works flawlessly under the deep ocean's unique optical rules. Transparency in animals isn't merely the absence of color, it's a structural trick, a careful arrangement of cells, proteins, and tissues that reduce scattering and absorption of light. Scattering occurs when light hits irregularities in tissue and bounces in random directions, making organisms visible. Deep-sea creatures solve this by smoothing out their tissues, minimizing pigments, and aligning fibers so precisely that light passes straight through them. It's like polishing your entire body into a living lens. Major organs, which on land are opaque and colorful, become thin films of near-invisible material, carefully tucked away or shaped to limit their visual footprint. Many deep-sea species achieve this ghostliness by reducing the number of chromatophores, pigment-bearing cells, to nearly zero. With no pigments to absorb or reflect light, their bodies remain perfectly neutral in the surrounding water. In some creatures, even the muscles are pale and delicate, just strong enough for slow, efficient movement, but not thick enough to betray their presence. Their blood often carries unusually low concentrations of hemoglobin, appearing almost clear. Their internal fluids mimic seawater in refractive index, allowing their insides to vanish just as effectively as their outsides. But transparency is only one tactic in the deep-sea invisibility playbook. Another is color, or more accurately, the strategic avoidance of color. In the abyss, most wavelengths of light vanish quickly. Blue light penetrates deepest, while reds and oranges disappear within the upper layers of the ocean. This creates a paradoxical truth. If something is bright red at the surface, it becomes nearly invisible in the dark depths. Many creatures exploit this by adopting deep crimson hues that render them functionally black in the midnight zone. These crimson bodies hide organs that would otherwise betray their presence, especially those that can't be transparent, like digestive tracts or reproductive systems. Some predators even evolve black skin so dark and so absorbent that it barely reflects any light at all, not even the faint glimmers from bioluminescent organisms passing nearby. This super black skin, found in a few specialized species, absorbs nearly all light that hits it, making the animal vanish into the void, like a shadow that detached itself and decided to live an independent life. But invisibility comes with challenges. Lacking pigmentation and robust structural tissues makes the body more vulnerable to damage. Transparent tissues are delicate, often thin and easily torn. So deep-sea creatures evolve protective strategies that complement their invisibility. Some inflate their bodies slightly to absorb impacts. Others compensate with flexible skeletons of cartilage or soft connective tissue that bend instead of break. Transparency may make them hard to see, but it also comes with a fragility that requires careful living, slow movements, gentle drifting, and cautious navigation through a world where jagged surfaces and sudden currents can do real harm. Then there are the creatures who take invisibility to a level that seems almost theatrical. Certain species have evolved eyes with mirrored surfaces that reflect light in such precise ways that their eyeballs vanish entirely when viewed from the right angle. Some fish have translucent skulls, allowing their brains to be faintly visible like drifting pearls inside a glass bowl. Others allow their digestive systems to sit toward the back of their bodies, away from areas most likely to catch stray illumination. For predators watching from below, these design features render the prey nearly untrackable. Perhaps the most bizarre adaptation belongs to animals who deploy anti-visibility countermeasures whenever they feed. Transparency breaks down when the stomach fills. The meal inside creates a visible blob. To prevent advertising, lunch inside, come and get it, some creatures tuck themselves inside darker water layers immediately after feeding. Others change orientation to hide the bulge from likely attack angles. A few simply shrink the meal by compressing it rapidly, reducing its visibility. Even digestion becomes part of the invisibility strategy. Some species play with the physics of light scattering in clever ways. Their tissues bend light around them subtly, creating distortions that make their shapes hard to perceive. They're not fully invisible, but they appear like faint mirages, wavering outlines that tell predators nothing useful. Imagine trying to grab smoke underwater. That's the degree of futility most predators face. But the true marvel lies in the balance each creature strikes between visibility and function. Transparent muscles cannot be thick or heavy. Colorless organs cannot perform certain light-based processes. Red tissues hide well but function differently than clear ones. So each animal finds its own sweet spot on the spectrum of invisibility, shaped by the specific dangers and opportunities of its niche. The result is a community of beings that seem half present, half dream, like sketches of animals that evolution never bothered to ink. Moving through the deep, they shimmer faintly, distort slightly, reveal nothing. They are ghosts not because they're ethereal, but because invisibility is their most reliable shield in a world where being noticed can mean being gone. In the midnight zone, blending in doesn't just help you survive, it defines your very existence. And here, disappearing isn't an escape, it's a way of life. If you've ever complained about modern dating being difficult, allow the midnight zone to gently pat you on the shoulder and say, "You have no idea." Down here, the nearest eligible partner might be several football fields or several kilometers away. There is no sunlight, no gathering place, no cozy corner where singles mingle. There is only darkness so thick it feels like velvet, and a vastness so enormous you could spend your entire life drifting past the same patch of water and never meet anyone at all. In such a place, reproduction becomes one of evolution's most impressive showcases of creativity, desperation, and sheer biological determination. The first major obstacle is simply finding each other. In the midnight zone, the idea of running into someone is statistically laughable. Animals here live in densities so low that a creature may encounter a potential mate once in a lifetime, if they're lucky, patient, and vaguely optimistic. This forces species to develop strategies that border on the extreme. Some rely heavily on chemical signals, releasing clouds of pheromones into the water that drift for astonishing distances. These scents linger like secret messages, announcing one's presence long after the sender has moved on. For nearby individuals, these signals function as glowing neon arrows pointing toward a potential partner, except the arrows smell faintly like biological chemistry, and romance is replaced with a series of instinctive steps. But scent alone isn't always reliable. Currents shift, signals fade. Predators might show up uninvited. So other species develop physical modifications that make accidental encounters more likely. Some animals grow elongated appendages, tendrils, or antennae that increase their touch radius in the surrounding darkness. These long sensory structures sweep gently through the water, searching for motion that might indicate a fellow member of the same species. It looks like careful feeling, a sort of underwater blindfolded handshake, but it's actually an ancient evolutionary gesture saying, "Anyone out there, please respond." One of the most dramatic deep-sea reproductive strategies belongs to creatures that simply avoid the problem of separation entirely. When individuals finally meet, they don't risk drifting apart again. Instead, the smaller partner fuses permanently onto the larger one, merging circulatory systems, sharing nutrients, and eventually becoming a living reproductive extension. This is not romance. This is tactical commitment. It is evolution staring at the deep sea's impossible odds and deciding that if you find someone suitable, you hold on and never let go, literally. The fused partner becomes a small parasitic node whose only remaining function is gamete production. It's marriage by biological welding. Other species lean heavily into timing as a clever workaround. Instead of relying on chance meetings, they coordinate powerfully synchronized spawning events. Entire populations release gametes at approximately the same time, turning small regions of the deep into hazy clouds of genetic possibility. This strategy depends on cues such as subtle temperature changes or chemical hints carried from upper layers of the ocean. The synchronization may be imperfect, but it increases the odds that drifting sperm and eggs eventually meet somewhere in the darkness, bumping into each other like shy strangers who had no idea the other was there. The deep also encourages some species to produce eggs that are built like tiny fortresses. These eggs develop thick protective coatings, nutrient-rich yolks, and strong outer membranes. Since parental care is nearly impossible in a place where you can't even see your own fins, the eggs must fend for themselves from the moment they enter the water. They drift gently, sometimes for months, before hatching into larvae that are equally independent. It's a childhood without supervision, just the cold, silent lesson of good luck out there. Larval strategies vary wildly. Some species produce larvae that drift upward toward layers where food is more abundant. Others produce larvae that remain deep, developing slowly in the more stable conditions of the abyss. Some larvae undergo bizarre metamorphoses that look more like rewiring projects. Eyes shift position, bodies elongate, digestive systems reorganize. These transformations aren't simply growth. They are navigational tools for survival in a world where the next good meal may not appear for weeks. For many species, reproductive success hinges on long-distance communication. A few deep-sea animals use subtle bioluminescent patterns, not to attract predators or signal danger, but to identify mates with specific blink rhythms. These signals are gentle, faint, often spaced out like a slow heartbeat. They serve as beacons in the dark, whispered pulses that say, "I'm here, and I'm your kind." It's not the bold flashing seen in shallower waters. It's quiet flirtation conducted across great distances. But even with chemical trails, sensory appendages, fusion strategies, synchronized spawning, and delicate light signals, reproduction in the midnight zone remains a logistical nightmare. The ocean at these depths is simply too vast, too still, too empty. So some species solve the problem by sheer overproduction, releasing thousands or millions of gametes into the water in the hopes that probability will eventually be kind. It's a brute force tactic, but in an environment where survival often depends on luck, overwhelming the odds is a perfectly respectable strategy. Other species take the opposite approach. Fewer offspring, but each given maximal investment. Large yolks, slow development, protective secretions, hardier larvae. This method acknowledges that meeting another of your kind is rare, so each successful fertilization becomes precious, something worth guarding fiercely. And through all of this, the deep sea reveals a curious truth. Reproduction here is not just a biological necessity. It's a statement of persistence, a quiet victory against the isolation of a world so spacious that companionship feels improbable. A reminder that life, no matter how spread out or challenged by darkness, finds a way to continue. In a realm without light, without neighborhoods, without chance encounters, survival depends on strategies that rewrite the normal rules of reproduction. The midnight zone may be lonely, but it's full of species that have mastered the art of reaching across the void, whether by scent, signal, fusion, or sheer persistence, to ensure that the next generation emerges from the darkness just as determined as the last. In the midnight zone, where the nearest buffet is approximately nowhere, and the dinner rush is a concept the deep sea has collectively opted out of, scavenging becomes less of a backup plan and more of a central life philosophy. Down here, every edible thing that drifts, sinks, tumbles, or decomposes is greeted with reverence. It doesn't matter if it's a tiny plankton flake or a fallen titan of the ocean. The deep treats every organic particle like a cosmic gift. When your home is a world where food rarely arrives on schedule, gratitude becomes a survival tactic and scavenging becomes a cultural event. At the heart of this constant drizzle of nourishment is the phenomenon known as marine snow. People hear the word snow and imagine something light and beautiful drifting through cold air. The deep sea version is not that. Marine snow is a slow, steady rain of organic crumbs, dead plankton, microscopic carcasses, mucus blobs, fish scales, shed exoskeletons, and the occasional unidentifiable biological mystery flake. It's not glamorous, but for millions of creatures, it's the closest thing the midnight zone has to a regular meal service. In a world without sunlight, marine snow is the tiny string of hope falling from the vibrant upper ocean like leftover blessings. Each flake is a calorie, a chance, a small treasure. Animals linger in gentle currents where the snow settles, drifting lazily with open mouths or tentacles extended to catch whatever falls. Some species develop delicate feeding structures, fine comb-like appendages or nets of mucus designed to snag even the smallest drifting morsels. These creatures are patient collectors, spending hours gathering small bites that together add up to survival. Think of them as the slowest, most persistent grocery shoppers imaginable, except their grocery list is always the same: whatever shows up. But marine snow is only the beginning. Sometimes the deep sea receives a delivery so monumental it transforms the local ecosystem for years. This is the whale fall, a term referring to the rare event when a whale dies and sinks, delivering a colossal buffet to the abyssal world below. A fallen whale is not just a carcass, it is a temporary city of life, a biological megastructure, a feast so large it reshapes the local neighborhood. When a whale's body descends through the depths, it attracts scavengers the way a porch light attracts insects on land. Sharks, hagfish, giant amphipods, and a variety of other deep-sea opportunists converge with surprising speed, drawn by the scent of an irresistible meal. The first responders are the large scavengers, tearing chunks of flesh with determination that borders on awe-inspiring. They come from kilometers away, guided by chemical trails so faint and broad that only deep-sea specialists can interpret them. They strip the whale's exterior, leaving behind exposed ribs and rich inner tissues. Hours pass, days pass. Smaller animals arrive to nibble on bits too tiny or awkward for the bulkier feeders. Worms, crustaceans, snails, and countless microbe colonies form layers of activity on and around the sinking giant. This phase is almost festive, an underwater potluck without polite manners. As time progresses, the whale fall enters a new era, decomposition on an epic scale. The bones become home to bacteria specialized in breaking down complex fats and oils stored deep within the skeleton. These bacteria produce chemicals, such as sulfides, turning the whale's remains into an underwater chemical reactor. Entire communities of organisms, species that exist almost nowhere else, gather to feed on the bacteria or on each other. In this slow, chemical-rich stage, a whale fall becomes not just a feast, but a foundational habitat that can persist for decades. For many deep-sea animals, discovering a whale fall is equivalent to winning a lifetime supply of groceries. But whale falls aren't the only large events that spark feeding frenzies. The deep accepts all manner of debris from above. Dead fish, discarded egg masses, broken kelp fragments, lost squid limbs, even the occasional chunk of pummeled driftwood, all become valuable sources of energy. Nothing is beneath the dignity of consumption. If it has carbon in it, someone will find it appetizing. Scavengers in the deep are astonishingly diverse. Some rely on smell, detecting faint scent trails from great distances. Others use sensitive feelers or hairs to detect movement or texture changes on the ocean floor. A few specialize in burying themselves in sediment, waiting for edible objects to land near their hiding place. These creatures don't pursue food, they let the buffet come to them. Still others roam slowly like underwater vacuum cleaners, methodically searching for anything digestible. And then there are the masters of slimy efficiency, hagfish. When they find a carcass, they burrow into it with unsettling gusto, consuming soft tissues from the inside out. In the process, they release copious amounts of slime, not because they are dramatic, but because the slime protects them from predators and helps them wedge deeper into their meal. It's messy, but it works. The detritus chain continues downward through microbes, the quiet alchemists of the deep. These microscopic powerhouses break down what no one else can digest, turning stubborn organic leftovers into nutrients that re-enter the food web. They form invisible clouds around decaying matter, participating in a never-ending cycle of decomposition and renewal. Without microbes, the deep sea would become a cluttered graveyard. With them, it becomes a system in which everything is repurposed, recycled, and reused. But scavenging is not merely about opportunism, it's about timing. Food often arrives unpredictably, which makes animals finely tuned to changes in current, temperature, or chemical concentration. A slight shift in the water might signal a distant meal. A sudden whiff of decay might trigger movement. A faint vibration may indicate that something edible has touched the seafloor. It's a constant sensory vigilance, not frantic or anxious, but calm and persistent. In this world, where meals are never guaranteed, nothing goes uneaten. A tiny drifting flake is dinner for someone. A large carcass is an event for hundreds. Even the chemicals released during decomposition become fuel for entire ecosystems. The midnight zone has no waste, only potential. And so, in the deepest dark, scavenging becomes not a fallback, but a fundamental principle. It is the quiet heartbeat of the abyss, the slow, steady recycling that keeps the deep alive. Every flake, every carcass, every drifting scrap is a gift from above, welcomed gratefully by creatures who have mastered the art of making the most out of everything the ocean offers, even when everything arrives one tiny drifting snowflake at a time. Patience is a virtue on land, but in the midnight zone, it's the closest thing to a religion. Down here, life moves at the pace of drifting snowflakes, and meals arrive with all the reliability of a mysterious relative who promises they'll stop by sometime. When food is scarce, unpredictable, and often microscopic, Deep sea creatures learn the ancient and sacred art of waiting, long, quiet, uncomplaining stretches of time where existence feels less like living and more like marinating in the thick, cold stillness. In this realm, self-control isn't admirable, it's mandatory. And when something edible finally appears, the excitement is so profound it could qualify as a local festival. Imagine floating in unlit water for weeks, sensing your surroundings through faint currents and subtle chemical whispers, waiting for any sign that calories are approaching. Days pass, then weeks, then perhaps a month. Hunger doesn't arrive in sharp waves like it does for surface animals. It arrives as a steady downward adjustment, a recalibration of expectations, a quiet reminder that time in the deep has a different shape. Creatures don't pace or fret or grow restless. They simply reduce their activity until life becomes a slow, gentle drift. Their bodies dim their demands to match the rhythm of scarcity. This level of patience requires biology that is astonishingly forgiving. Many deep-sea animals have metabolism so slow that fasting becomes more of a lifestyle than an emergency response. Their organs operate in a sort of low-power mode, preserving energy by dialing down processes that aren't essential. Muscles relax, motion fades, digestion slows to a crawl. A predator might settle into a patch of water and remain practically motionless for days, waiting for something edible to wander close enough to justify the effort of moving. Their energy budgets are planned with the precision of master accountants. A single swim stroke or a quick turn can be costly. So creatures often adopt a philosophy of do nothing unless absolutely required. Even predators known for dramatic jaws or bizarre body shapes rely more on stillness than on aggression. They perch or hover like living statues, conserving every droplet of energy. When the opportunity finally arrives, when some unsuspecting prey animal wanders too close, the stored patience pays off in a sudden moment of action. This waiting game doesn't just happen in open water. Many bottom dwellers reside in burrows, cracks, or small depressions in the seafloor, tucked away like residents of tiny underwater studios. They emerge only when the scent or vibration of food drifts their way. Some poking organs, tentacles, antennae, elongated feelers remain stationed outside the burrow like biological doorbells waiting for a ping. Movement is minimal, and when you live in the dark at crushing depths, minimalism becomes both art and survival strategy. But what does celebration look like in the midnight zone, where no one has confetti, music, or glow sticks? It takes the form of sudden bursts of activity, brief windows where creatures move faster, feed actively, and behave with a kind of quiet enthusiasm their normally stoic lives don't express. When a significant food source appears, such as a fallen chunk of jelly or the remains of something larger, animals gather slowly but surely, each drawn in by smell, vibration, or chemical cues. It's not a chaotic frenzy. It's more like the deep sea equivalent of a community potluck where everyone arrives calmly but with unmistakable excitement. Even small opportunities feel monumental. A drifting cluster of plankton might trigger a feeding response that looks almost exuberant by deep-sea standards. A passing shrimp is treated like a gourmet delicacy. A nutrient-rich scrap of organic matter becomes the centerpiece of a micro-feast. These moments aren't everyday events. They're rare highlights in an existence that leans heavily toward routine quietness. Evolution has turned scarcity into a feature, and animals into masters of savoring the fleeting bounty. The patience of the deep isn't only about waiting for food, it's also about waiting for safer conditions. Some predators hold off on striking until water movement slows, because turbulence can ruin a carefully timed attack. Others postpone feeding until they drift away from predators who might be drawn to the same scent trail. Still others delay emerging from hiding until the chemical signature of danger fully dissipates. In a world where missteps are costly, caution becomes interwoven with patience. Reproductive timing, too, is shaped by these long stretches of waiting. When mates are scarce and young are fragile, animals bide their time, conserving energy until the conditions are right. Eggs may be released only during narrow windows when currents can carry them to safer areas. Larvae may wait before swimming upward, lingering in the protective dark until they've stored enough energy to risk the journey. Even movement across the sea floor happens with patience built in. Some animals migrate vertically or horizontally in slow, deliberate phases, interrupted by long pauses where they simply float and reassess. These migrations aren't grand voyages. They are careful rearrangements undertaken only when absolutely necessary. This extreme patience gives the midnight zone an atmosphere unlike any other place on Earth. It's a habitat where nothing rushes, where urgency is scarce, and where everything, movement, feeding, growth, reproduction, unfolds in its own unhurried time. The ocean above may be full of motion and life and light, but the deep is patient, focused, measured, and yet this stillness does not imply emptiness. It implies resourcefulness. The animals that live here are masters of waiting without drifting into hopelessness, of staying ready without expending precious energy, of preparing for a meal that might arrive today, next month, or next season. For them, patience is not simply endurance. It's a finely tuned survival skill, a quiet triumph practiced over millions of years, a celebration in slow motion. And when food finally drifts their way, no matter how small the offering, they respond with a silent, unmistakable deep-sea cheer. Finally. For most creatures, daily commutes involve paved roads, predictable traffic, and the faint hope of coffee at the destination. But in the ocean, there exists a nightly commute so vast, so ancient, and so synchronized that it makes every land-based commute look like amateur hour. This is the vertical migration, a massive planet-spanning movement where countless organisms rise from the depths toward shallower waters under the cover of darkness, then retreat back into the safety of the deep before sunrise. It is not a casual swim. It is the largest migration on Earth, bigger than any herd crossing a savanna or flock sweeping across a continent. yet it happens silently, invisibly, every single night. What makes this nightly journey extraordinary is not only its scale, but the fact that many of the travelers begin their trek from or through the midnight zone, rising hundreds of meters up the water column and then sinking again before dawn. For these creatures, there is no resting platform, no shoreline, no warm breeze. There's only an immense vertical corridor where the difference between life and danger is measured in depth. Imagine climbing a mountain in complete darkness, eating dinner at the top, then descending before daylight exposes you to predators. That's what deep ocean commuters do daily, except the mountain is made of water, the climb is nearly weightless, and the stakes are absolute. Why do they do it? Because the surface waters, despite their brightness and lurking predators, hold the richest concentration of food. Plankton blooms, drifting larvae, and microscopic morsels turn the upper layers into a nightly dining hall. But during the day, sunlight reveals everything. For small organisms, that visibility is dangerous. Predators with sharp eyesight dominate the upper ocean while the sun is shining. So the deep dwellers wait patiently in the darkness below until night falls like a curtain. As soon as the world dims, an entire universe of bodies begins to rise. This migration is dominated by zooplankton, tiny drifting animals that form the foundation of countless food webs. But they don't travel alone. Fish, squid, shrimp, gelatinous animals, and even some predators join the ascent. Each species occupies a slightly different altitude range, creating invisible layers of life that ripple upward like an underwater elevator system at rush hour. It's coordinated without being organized, synchronized without a single leader. Everyone just instinctively knows when to go. The energy dynamics of this migration are nothing short of impressive. Rising toward the surface requires effort, but water density helps. Many animals regulate their buoyancy by altering the composition or distribution of their internal fluids, making themselves just a little more floaty at night. They don't swim constantly, they glide, pulse, drift, and let physics carry some of the load. The ascent happens in slow increments, like a marathoner pacing their steps. Downward travel is even easier. Gravity and density do the heavy lifting, letting commuters sink with minimal exertion. In a world where every calorie counts, efficiency is survival. The midnight zone becomes a transit pathway in these hours. Creatures that usually linger in lower depths move through it like cautious passengers. They don't linger long. The deep is safe. But their dinner lies above. Even mid-water predators take advantage of the movement. Some position themselves strategically along the migration route, ambushing travelers like bandits stationed along an ancient trade road. The commuters aren't helpless, though. Many species glow faintly or flash small signals to confuse predators. Others rely on transparency or remain utterly still when danger approaches. The journey may be massive, but it is not carefree. This nightly commute influences every part of their biology. Muscles adapt to long, slow ascents. Digestive systems sync with feeding windows. Sensory organs tune themselves to nighttime conditions. Even reproductive timing sometimes aligns with migration, ensuring larvae hatch at depths where nighttime feasts await. It is a lifestyle built around perpetual motion. a cycle that repeats every 24 hours with astonishing consistency. One of the most remarkable aspects of this migration is how deeply it affects the planet itself. When billions of organisms migrate upward and downward in unison, they physically move carbon, nutrients, and even heat between ocean layers. They mix the water column in ways that influence climate and chemical cycles. They transport nutrients from the surface downward through digestion and excretion. They shift oxygen distribution. In essence, these nightly commuters act as tiny, tireless climate engineers, performing biological work on a planetary scale without ever knowing it. Not every visitor from above participates in the full commute, though. Some hang out just above the midnight zone boundary during the day and dip slightly lower to avoid predators. Others rise only halfway, catching whatever resources drift down from the surface. The migration has tiers. Some creatures ascend 20 meters, others 200, and some undertake climbs of more than half a kilometer. It's a gradient of ambition, determined by hunger, energy reserves, and the species' risk tolerance. Predators from the midnight zone notice all this movement. They may not travel with the commuters, but they station themselves strategically to intercept those too slow or too bold. Some species lurk just beneath the ascending wave, waiting for anyone who falls behind. Others lurk above the descending wave at dawn, hoping to snag latecomers who misjudged the sunrise. It's a rhythm as elegant as it is dangerous, and yet the commuters return every night. They rise, they feed, they retreat. It is a routine imprinted so deeply that even major disturbances don't stop it. Storms, currents, temperature shifts. The migration continues because without it, the creatures would starve. The deep sea rewards patience, but not passivity. For many species, survival depends on this delicate balance between caution and movement, hunger and safety. In the midnight zone, where life often feels suspended in slow motion, the vertical commuters represent something different, motion with purpose. They bring energy from above to the depths and bring the stillness of the depths upward. They are the bridge between worlds, between light and dark, food and famine, risk and reward. Night after night they rise through the silent darkness, performing the same ancient journey their ancestors began millions of years ago. Not because it is easy, but because it is the deep sea's most enduring marathon, a pilgrimage of hunger, instinct, and resilience in a world where even movement is a calculated act of survival. If the surface ocean can sometimes resemble a bustling city with loud neighbors, territorial disputes, and the occasional dramatic chase scene, the midnight zone is more like a quiet, sparsely populated countryside where everyone minds their own business with almost suspicious politeness. Down here, aggression is not a sign of toughness. It's a sign of terrible budgeting. Fighting wastes energy, injures vital body parts, and risks alerting predators or opportunists who would gladly interrupt the scuffle with their own agendas. In a world where meals are rare and calories practically sparkle with value, the residents of the deep have collectively agreed on a simple rule. Avoid conflict unless you have absolutely no choice. Territory in the midnight zone is not defined by fences, rocks, or coral structures. There simply aren't enough physical landmarks to divide things neatly. Instead, boundaries are shaped by personal space, chemical signatures, and the subtle, invisible trails creatures leave behind as they navigate through the darkness. Each individual maintains a loose sense of my zone, but it's less about owning a plot of seafloor and more about maintaining a comfortable buffer where they can safely wait for food, drift in peace, or avoid being mistaken for someone else's dinner. Because visibility doesn't exist here, territorial awareness must evolve through other senses. Chemical detection plays a major role. Many species produce faint, species-specific signatures that reveal not only that an individual is present, but its approximate size, health, and even its direction of travel. These signals act like underwater voicemail. Hello, I am here. Kindly avoid me. Predators use such cues to avoid unnecessary encounters with others of their own kind. And prey animals use them to dodge situations that might end poorly. But unlike surface ecosystems where chemical signals often attract mates or signal readiness to fight, deep-sea chemical messaging tends to deliver much more practical content, like, I'm hungry but not hungry enough to wrestle, or I have claimed this general patch of water for now, but feel free to pass through quietly. It's less confrontational and more deeply cooperative, not because deep-sea animals are uniquely peaceful, but because they cannot afford the price tag that comes with hostility. When disputes do arise, the first step isn't fighting, it's leaving. Many species drift away at the first hint of competition. Moving aside is safer than trying to prove dominance. A confrontation could mean torn tissue or damaged sensory organs, injuries that take far too long to heal in the cold, slow-paced deep. Even minor wounds increase an animal's chances of being detected by predators. And so, an informal etiquette has evolved. If you sense someone else approaching your feeding zone, you shift your position slightly and let them pass, unless circumstances are truly dire. This avoidance behavior leads to a strange but beautiful phenomenon, the deep-sea traffic dance. Picture two ghost-like creatures drifting toward each other in the dark. As soon as their vibrations overlap or their chemical trails mingle, each one adjusts course by a few degrees. No feints, no posturing, just gentle, silent navigation. They pass one another the way courteous hikers step aside on a narrow trail. There is no hurry, no annoyance, just mutual recognition of the unspoken rule. Coexist peacefully, conserve energy, and keep moving. Territoriality becomes most pronounced around valuable resources. A carcass, for example, attracts multiple scavengers, each hoping to secure a share without igniting a fight. Instead of charging in aggressively, they space themselves around the meal, like diners settling at a table with plenty of room. If one individual is larger or more intimidating, others will maintain greater distance, waiting their turn or selecting a different angle of approach. The goal is clear: feed without provoking anyone. The deep sea may be harsh, but its dinner table etiquette puts some family gatherings to shame. Some animals maintain personal territories, not because they fear competitors, but because they want to reduce sensory clutter. Many deep-sea species rely heavily on detecting subtle vibrations, chemical gradients, or changes in pressure. Too many creatures clustered in one area can create noisy water, drowning out important information. Spreading out is not just polite, it's practical. It improves survival, reduces confusion, and prevents predators from interpreting the commotion as an invitation. For predators that normally patrol wide areas, territorial boundaries are flexible. A large deep-sea hunter may roam a loose circuit that covers hundreds of meters, sometimes kilometers, drifting slowly from one region to another. If it encounters a member of the same species along the way, they typically part quietly, avoiding conflict unless one is severely disadvantaged by hunger. Even then, challenges are brief, consisting mostly of postural displays, arched bodies, expanded fins, slight flashes of bioluminescence, not enough to draw other predators, just enough to communicate. If the competitor doesn't back down, the default next move is often retreat, not escalation. The deep sea rewards endurance, not bravado. Complex territorial relationships also exist between species that overlap in niches. Some animals are content to share space so long as they don't target the same food source. Others maintain zones based on timing rather than location. They may occupy the same stretch of water but feed at different hours or on different drifting materials. This partitioning avoids wasteful competition and allows multiple species to coexist without stepping on one another's metaphorical toes. Even symbiotic relationships shape territory. Some creatures attach themselves to structures or drifting organisms and maintain micro-territories around these mobile homes. Others form loose associations where their proximity mutually benefits them. One may stir the water and dislodge particles, while another collects the drifting crumbs. These partnerships reduce conflict by spreading the workload and encouraging peaceful coexistence. There are exceptions, of course. Some deep-sea animals are fiercely territorial when guarding offspring or brooding sites, but these cases are surprisingly rare. Most deep-sea life never sees its own young. Eggs are left drifting, larvae disperse widely. There are no nests to defend, no dens to fight over, no territories that persist across generations. Each individual navigates the abyss independently, unburdened by ownership, but guided by instinctual boundaries. The result is a vast, quiet realm where creatures move with a kind of disciplined grace, respecting space because their survival depends on it. The deep sea is dangerous, but unnecessary conflict is one danger its residents have learned to avoid with astonishing consistency. Territory here is not a battleground. It is a delicate negotiation, a constantly shifting balance maintained by creatures who understand that in the midnight zone, peace isn't just pleasant, it's life-saving. Life in the midnight zone is like trying to run a marathon inside a freezer while someone piles weight on your shoulders every second. Nothing about this environment cooperates with the chemistry that keeps normal organisms alive. And yet, deep-sea creatures persist, not by ignoring the laws of biology, but by rewriting them. Their bodies operate with an arsenal of molecular tricks so refined that it's as if evolution hired a team of chemists and whispered, "I need you to bend the rules, but don't let them break." The midnight zone's temperature hovers just above freezing, cold enough to make chemical reactions sluggish and cell structures vulnerable to crystallization. To combat this, many deep-dwelling creatures produce antifreeze proteins, special molecules that bind to tiny ice crystals and prevent them from growing. These proteins don't melt ice. They simply stop it from expanding, like a snowman supervisor telling every frozen particle, "That's far enough." Without them, cells would rupture, membranes would tear, and the fluid inside could turn into a slushy with fatal consequences. These antifreeze proteins come in a variety of shapes and functions. Some latch onto ice and physically block further growth. Others alter the structure of surrounding water molecules, subtly adjusting how they interact. Some operate inside the cells, others between them. Each version performs the same essential job: keep freezing out of the equation. It's biochemical insulation, tailor-made for creatures who live in temperatures most animals would file complaints about. Cold, however, is only one part of the problem. Pressure here reaches levels that would flatten human-designed equipment into objects resembling abstract sculptures. High pressure forces molecules closer together, disrupts protein structures, and slows or even stops normal biochemical reactions. For surface organisms, such pressure would twist enzymes into unusable shapes, the biological equivalent of trying to write while someone slowly bends your pen. To counter this, deep-sea creatures rely on pressure-proof enzymes, molecular machines adapted to function flawlessly in conditions that should, by all logical standards, ruin them. These enzymes are flexible in the right places and rigid in others, built from amino acid sequences that resist compression. Their internal bonds are arranged to stay stable even when the surrounding water exerts enormous force. Imagine a tool designed to work perfectly underwater while a mountain sits on top of it. That is the deep sea enzyme. One of the most remarkable aspects of these enzymes is their performance consistency. At surface level pressures, the same proteins might become so loose that they lose function. But at depth, they achieve the Goldilocks balance, neither too rigid nor too floppy. Their entire structure is tuned to the environment, like an instrument that only plays in one specific atmospheric condition. If you brought them to the surface, they'd practically fall apart from confusion. Then there's the matter of metabolism. In human terms, metabolism is like an internal furnace that requires constant fuel and oxygen. In the deep sea's cold darkness, oxygen is limited, energy is scarce, and chemical reactions naturally slow. So deep-sea organisms adjust their entire metabolic strategy, shifting from speedy reactions to a more deliberate pace. But the truly fascinating part is not that their metabolism is slower, it's that it's flexible in ways that break traditional biological assumptions. Many deep-sea creatures can switch metabolic pathways depending on what's available, like chefs adapting recipes based on whatever ingredients they find in the pantry. Some rely heavily on anaerobic processes, systems that don't need much oxygen, to handle moments of increased demand. Others maintain metabolic rates so low they verge on suspended animation, with cells operating in slow motion until food or opportunity appears. Then there are animals that have adapted to harness chemical energy from sources unfamiliar to most surface life. Some species coexist with microbes that break down unusual compounds, forming micro-communities that share energy in a miniature chemical economy. For instance, certain bacteria living on deep-sea organisms can process compounds such as sulfides or methane, chemicals abundant in the ocean's darker regions. The host benefits from the microbial chemistry, while the microbes gain a stable home. It's a quiet alliance built on molecular bargaining. Membranes, those thin, delicate boundaries that separate inside from outside, also undergo dramatic adaptations. At high pressure and low temperature, membranes tend to become rigid, threatening to crack or leak. Deep-sea species solve this by incorporating special lipids that remain fluid under pressure, allowing cells to function normally. These lipids, often unsaturated or uniquely structured, keep membranes supple, preventing them from freezing or stiffening. It's like adding a touch of oil to cold butter so it stays spreadable. Even DNA repair mechanisms in deep-sea creatures operate differently. The combination of cold, pressure, and sometimes naturally occurring radiation from deep-sea minerals can threaten the stability of genetic material. Some species evolve enhanced repair enzymes that identify and fix damaged DNA more efficiently. Others reduce the frequency of cell division, minimizing opportunities for damage to occur in the first place. Some animals even develop chemical strategies that verge on creative chaos. Molecules that function as tiny shields, stabilizing proteins or preventing harmful reactions from spiraling out of control. Certain compounds act as chemical chaperones, wrapping proteins in protective embraces and ensuring they remain folded correctly. Others adjust the acidity or ionic balance inside cells, making the internal environment more forgiving. What's most astonishing is how seamlessly these adaptations integrate. Antifreeze proteins, pressure-proof enzymes, specialized lipids, flexible metabolic pathways all work together in a coordinated symphony. The creatures who possess them do not consciously deploy each tool. Their biology simply flows. The adaptations are written into their cells, a survival script rehearsed over millions of years. To surface dwellers, these chemical feats may seem heroic, even impossible, but to deep-sea life, they're everyday routines, quiet miracles happening in each cell, whispering to the environment, "I was built for this." Survival here is not brute strength or speed, it's chemical artistry, molecular engineering, a biological poetry that lets life thrive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. In the midnight zone, physics challenges life at every turn, but through chemistry, crafted, honed, perfected, life answers back. If the midnight zone had a personality, it would be the quiet kid in class who never raises their hand but secretly keeps the entire group project from falling apart. While most of Earth's attention goes to forests, coral reefs, and the lively surface ocean, the deep sea, particularly the midnight zone, doesn't bother asking for recognition. It simply gets to work, and its work is monumental. This lightless region, stretched across every ocean basin like a hidden underworld, plays a profound role in shaping global climate. It absorbs carbon, manages nutrients, buffers planetary temperature swings, and does it all with the humility of a superhero wearing an oversized hoodie. To appreciate this, imagine Earth's atmosphere as a delicate bank account of gases. Too much carbon dioxide, and the balance tips toward warming. Too little, and the planet begins impersonating a frozen marble. The midnight zone acts as a vast, silent vault where carbon is withdrawn from the atmosphere and locked away. When organisms in the sunlit layers photosynthesize, they absorb carbon dioxide from the air. That carbon then moves through the food web, from tiny plankton to larger creatures, and eventually many of those organisms, or their remains, sink into the deep ocean, taking their carbon with them. Once organic matter hits the midnight zone, it enters long-term storage. Tiny particles drift down like dim, nutrient-rich stars in slow motion. Larger remains, such as the bodies of fish or squid, descend more quickly. Even the waste products of countless marine organisms contribute to this rain. The midnight zone receives all of it, quietly collecting carbon that would otherwise remain active in Earth's climate system. This process is often called the biological pump, but that name barely captures its significance. The pump doesn't hum or buzz. It doesn't even move in a mechanical sense. It's more like a conveyor belt of gravity and decay, gently funneling carbon downward, away from the atmospheric cycle. Once carbon settles in these deeper layers, it can remain there for centuries or even millennia. The midnight zone becomes a storage room where carbon rests, tucked safely out of circulation until natural ocean mixing cycles eventually bring some of it back upward. But carbon storage isn't the only invisible task the midnight zone performs. It influences oxygen distribution as well. As drifting organic matter settles, deep-sea microbes and animals slowly consume it, using oxygen in the process. This delicate dance determines how much oxygen remains in different layers of the ocean, which shapes everything from fish migration patterns to nutrient availability. Too little oxygen in certain areas, and habitats shrink. Too much, and the balance of decomposition shifts. The midnight zone, through its careful, steady processing of sinking carbon, helps keep this balance from swinging too wildly. There's another climate-relevant job this region handles with quiet mastery: regulating heat. The ocean absorbs most of the excess heat produced by human-driven global warming, and much of that heat slowly disperses downward. The midnight zone acts like a vast thermal memory bank, holding on to temperature anomalies and releasing them gradually. Its enormous volume and stable conditions allow it to moderate heat distribution across the entire planet. Without this buffer, surface waters would warm much faster, storms would intensify even more abruptly, and ocean currents might become unpredictable in ways that make meteorologists whisper nervous prayers. And speaking of currents, the midnight zone helps drive the global conveyor belt of water movement known as thermohaline circulation, a massive system that redistributes heat and nutrients around the planet. Cold, dense water sinks at the poles and creeps along the ocean floor, eventually rising elsewhere to meet warmer currents. The midnight zone is the pathway for much of this deep movement, serving as a silent transport system for the ocean's internal plumbing. Nutrients buried in deep waters are eventually brought back up to feed surface ecosystems. Heat absorbed by warm currents is carried downward and redistributed. Chemical imbalances get evened out across continents and hemispheres. It is not dramatic. It does not roar like a hurricane or burst like a volcano. But this deep, slow circulation is one of Earth's most powerful climate balancers. And the midnight zone is the highway where it happens. Meanwhile, the creatures living in this dim realm are not passive passengers. They help stabilize the system through their behavior. Vertical migrators, traveling up at night and down during the day, physically move carbon and nutrients across layers. Their nightly commute doesn't just feed them, it stirs the ocean. They mix water, shift chemistry, and influence how carbon moves through the depths. Each creature, shrimp, fish, jelly, squid, acts like a tiny pump, lifting nutrients from darkness and lowering carbon-rich waste in return. Multiply that across billions of organisms, and the midnight zone becomes a living engine of global chemistry. There's also the matter of sequestration through death, a topic the midnight zone handles with both efficiency and no sentimental hesitation. When deep-sea animals die, their bodies sink further, often reaching the abyssal plains. Their carbon is locked away even longer, incorporated into sediments or consumed by organisms that remain far from the atmosphere. It's a slow, natural form of carbon burial that predates human civilization by hundreds of millions of years. If the midnight zone had a resume, planet-wide carbon accountant would be at the top. In a practical sense, the midnight zone is Earth's climate editor, adjusting the draft, smoothing the extremes, and quietly managing background processes that keep the planet livable. Most of the time, humans don't think about it. Many don't even know it exists. But its influence touches the air we breathe, the temperatures we experience, and the stability of ecosystems we depend on. It does not glow with importance the way coral reefs do. It does not host crowds of colorful fish. It does not make headlines unless something strange washes up or a new deep-sea creature is discovered. Yet the midnight zone remains essential. A shy superhero keeping the world stable while asking for nothing in return. Its power is subtle, its work uncelebrated, but its impact is immense. In the deepest dark, far from sunlight and human eyes, the midnight zone ensures that Earth remains not just a habitable planet, but a remarkably stable one. If you could float in the midnight zone long enough for the darkness to feel familiar, long enough for the cold to stop surprising you, and the pressure to feel like background music, you might notice something unexpected. The deep sea is not defined by its harshness. It is defined by its creativity. Every rule we've explored so far, every improbable adaptation, every twist of biology invented to survive in the most unlikely environment on Earth, points not to fragility, but to an almost rebellious resilience. Life here doesn't just cope, it innovates. It flourishes in ways that would look absurd anywhere else. Yet in this darkness, these ideas make flawless sense. Exploring the Midnight Zone is like flipping through evolution's secret sketchbook, full of experimental prototypes and audacious designs that never made it to the surface. Up above, animals follow certain patterns, eyes shaped for sunlight, bodies structured for buoyancy or gravity, metabolisms tuned for abundance. But down here the rules loosen, the constraints dissolve, and life drifts toward possibilities that feel almost poetic in their weirdness. The deep is where evolution tries things it wouldn't dare attempt anywhere else. It is a realm where bodies become translucent films, jaws stretch far beyond their own skulls, stomachs swell into soft balloons, and senses evolve into delicate instruments tuned to vibrations and chemicals rather than light. Each adaptation is not simply a reaction to the environment. It is a declaration that survival is possible anywhere, given enough time and imagination. The Midnight Zone has no light, but it reveals truths. One of them is that life does not require comfort. It does not require warmth. It does not require stable terrain or consistent meals or friendly neighbors. Life requires only the smallest foothold, the faintest niche, and from that sliver of opportunity, it builds entire civilizations of creatures that do the impossible simply because the impossible is the only thing available. And what is perhaps most striking is not the bizarre appearances of these deep-sea inhabitants, but the calm efficiency with which they live. Nothing feels frantic here. Nothing seems rushed. These creatures have mastered the long view, thriving with metabolisms that idle like sleepy engines, moving slowly because the environment allows no other pace. There is wisdom in the stillness, an understanding that survival is not always about speed or strength or competition, but about knowing when to conserve, when to wait, and when to surge forward with sudden purpose. This patience extends to the entire ecosystem. Every drifting particle becomes a resource. Every carcass becomes a landscape. Every glow becomes communication. The Midnight Zone demonstrates that scarcity does not weaken an ecosystem. It sharpens it, focusing evolution into a set of solutions that are lean, elegant, and astonishingly effective. When scientists send vehicles into these depths, the cameras don't just reveal strange creatures, they reveal perspective. They show us how narrow our assumptions about life have been. We tend to imagine organisms thriving only in environments with warmth, light, and constant nourishment. But the deep sea counters, with an entire world thriving in perpetual cold and darkness. It challenges the boundaries of habitability. It suggests that life elsewhere in the universe might not resemble us at all. It might resemble the soft, glowing, drifting beings of the deep. This part of the ocean also teaches us humility. For centuries, humans assumed the deep was empty, a barren trench of silence, where life was too difficult to sustain. Then came the discoveries: thin, transparent fish with crescent eyes, drifting jellies shimmering like floating lanterns, predators that look like sketches from a dream. Each encounter forces us to reconsider what living systems can endure and just how flexible biology truly is. Exploring the midnight zone feels less like studying animals and more like witnessing resilience in its purest form. Every creature is a story of persistence told through tissue, chemistry, and instinct. Every adaptation is a reminder that when faced with challenges, life does not shrug and give up. It bends, stretches, compresses, innovates. It finds a way to flourish in places that seem actively hostile to its existence. There is also an emotional dimension to exploring this deep realm. The darkness feels ancient, older than forests, older than reefs, older than most ecosystems that ever evolved on land. When we descend into the midnight zone, we enter a world that has existed quietly for millions of years, unaffected by tides of human history or the rise and fall of civilizations. It is the closest thing Earth has to a living time capsule, where evolution's strangest ideas were not just imagined, but fully realized. And perhaps that is the final gift of the midnight zone: perspective. A reminder that our planet holds more mysteries than we can count, that life is not fragile, it is stubborn, explosive, resourceful, that innovation doesn't always happen in sunlight. Sometimes it happens in a darkness so complete that imagination becomes the main evolutionary currency. As we reflect on these silent depths, on the glowing signals, the improbable bodies, the patient waiting, the chemical precision, the drifting shadows, we come away with something more profound than scientific curiosity. We come away with awe. Awe at a world where the extreme becomes ordinary. Awe at life that thrives without light, without warmth, without luxury. Awe at a realm that asks us to reconsider everything we thought we understood about biology. Exploring the midnight zone is like meeting evolution off-duty, relaxed, unfiltered, and wildly creative. And the more we learn about this place, the more it becomes clear that life's resilience is its own kind of light, illuminating even the darkest corners of our world with possibilities we never imagined.